So talking more about the load cell pedal then, Hunter, just explain to us what the main benefits would be for somebody that's not used any load cells before.
Well, I'm sure you can attest to it that it just feels like a more natural brake feel that you would feel in like a car or whatever you would drive on track. You just get more data inputs from a load cell to your sim of choice by ACC instead, of course, iRacing, whatever. And that leads to a smoother and more consistent braking feel.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I'll sort of hold my hands up and say I was quite surprised with the fact that even with a basic load cell, you can sort of feel that the car doesn't lock up as much. It's not so stabby on the brakes.
A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a very, very warm welcome to the penultimate rounds of the Coach Dave Academy SimGrid World Cup powered by Thrustmaster. We are here from the virtual recreation of Spa-Francorchamps. It's myself, David Christie, alongside Luke Rogers, providing live coverage of the qualifying session tonight. Luke, a very, very good evening, and it's fantastic to join you back in the box.
Yeah, this track is a monster, isn't it? I'm so excited for what we're about to see. A track that is, I think, up there with the best. I see Nordschleife, I see Bathurst as some of the biggest challenges in motorsports, and this track is right up there with them. It's steeped in history. 1924 was the first 24-hour race at this track, and it's been going all since then. BMW, 25 wins at this track, 2 in the last 5 years, but Porsche has been coming back. I'm so excited for what we're going to see over the course of this weekend. 24 hours at an unpredictable, just monster of a track.
Yep, and it absolutely is. It's really one of those that any driver, sim racing driver or real life driver really wants to get on their resume as quickly as possible because, as you said, it is an absolute monster of a track. But it's been a monster of a season as well, Luke, hasn't it?
Yeah, we've had some pretty wild competition already in the championship. We've got 20 points between the top 3 in Pro. The Like and Subscribe team currently in first place on 84. A 12-point lead down to GTWR Racing team with 72 points. But weirdly, the 2 teams that have won so far are not leading the championship in Pro. So, Like and Subscribe finishing third at Suzuka, second at Bathurst. GTWR got the Bathurst win and then third place Racing Line Motorsports. They've only got 6th place. That's their best finish, and they're in third place in this championship. So there's a lot to play for, and I think it's really showing in the championship that consistency is key, right? Because second place, first place, 11th. They're not going to win the championship if they have another poor performance here.
No, you're absolutely right with that one. And an amazing season we've had so far. Just the 2 races we've got left to go just now. We've got Spa that we're doing the qualifying for tonight. And then we move on next month to Kyalami in South Africa, an iconic circuit in its own right. But tonight we focus on Spa. What do you think are going to be the factors that are going to come into play this weekend, Luke? Weather obviously is going to be, I'd imagine, one of the main ones.
Yeah, we've got a lot of Audis in this championship, and that is partly because of Spa. It is a car that really suits this track. It really, especially the second sector, it gets a lot of speed compared to the rest of the cars. We've also got Mercedes right up there, competing at the top of the championship and actually leading so far in Pro. But as you said, the weather here is going to mix that up. The Audis, whilst they're still good in the weather, they're very twitchy. They're very scary to drive. And something like a Bentley, which traditionally at a track like this doesn't do that well. That longer wheelbase, especially in ACC, really favors these conditions. So I'm expecting to see a couple surprises towards the top, especially the Aston Martins as well. If we go back to Bathurst, we saw the 995 silver car was actually competing at the top, right? They almost got a podium in the end. I think that car might do well.
Yeah, fantastic performance from the leaders in the Silver Championship at that iconic race in Bathurst. But moving forward to tonight, I do believe we've got a track guide video coming up very, very shortly. So we'll be able to take you through the twists and turns of the incredible Spa-Francorchamps circuit. talking about the circuit itself, Luke, I mean, what stands out for you? I personally, I love the bus stop chicane, turns 19 and 20. When you're just coming on the exit of Blanchimont on the run up to there, for me, that's where I tend to take a lot of my scalps.
Yeah, this is a track I know pretty well in GT3 cars. I've actually got a sprint race in between my commentary stints this weekend, so I've been putting a lot of time into practicing it. And I just think that I've run from Lake Coombe all the way down to Curvepool Frere, just that whole middle sector. It just flows so beautifully. And if you can get your car working well through those corners, flowing between each one, you're not losing the rear, you've not got too much understeer coming through places like Pouhon. You can just gain so much time. And I think it really rewards those people that are able to get into a rhythm, right? You've got that chicanes of the left and right in Lake Coombe that flows instantly into the right-hander of Malmedy. Bruxelles into Speakers, into Pouhon, that whole section, you just have to get it perfect on your laps. So it's a track, obviously 24 hours, you reward consistency, but this is a track where consistency is king.
Well, without further ado, then let us go and take a hot lap of Spa, and we'll be back with you in just a second.
So there is nothing better than just sitting back and just listening to the roar of a Bentley, even in the sim world, even in the virtual world. The engine is just something else, man. It's although we are commentators and it is our job to speak over David, sometimes it's just nice to sit back.
Yeah, it is. We are just as much of race fans as anybody else out there, and I really enjoyed that. I've got to be honest. It just sounds fantastic, doesn't it? Really, really does. And so nice to hear the engines roaring around the circuit here at Stavelot, this 4.3 mile circuit. And as if by magic, look at that, look, we are ready to go qualifying.
And look at those conditions. It is a downpour at the virtual Spa track right now. And that Bentley that we saw, that is a car that really suits the wet, right? So we see the 194 car in the hands of Gethin, I would assume does really well, because we saw them competing actually quite well in the practice sessions just before. They were putting in some really solid lap times. And this track, I think, in these conditions will really favour it. But what I'm interested to see is just how much track development we get, because right now the whole track is wet. There's no dry line, and you're probably looking at sort of 228s, 229s will be the sort of the top lines, the top times to start. But as that dry line starts to form, remember we have 50 odd cars on the track developing that dry line. As it starts to form, we're going to cut seconds off that time, and I expect we're going to get down to the 226, maybe even the 225, which is absurd times in the wet.
And just on that note, I mean, wild conditions. The track will evolve, but the wild conditions, we would call that Wednesday here in Scotland. But the track will change very quickly, so it does look very scary here. The track is very, very wet, but as this herd of GT3 cars come piling over the hills here at Spa, the track will dry very, very quickly, so the times will come tumbling down. But tyre management is also going to be a big factor as well, because as we've seen so often, those wet tyres can boil up very, very quickly. So are we going to see cars on the back straight there pulling off to cool down their tyres?
I think it just really depends on how much that line develops. Right? If it's raining this hard, it might be that it's raining so hard that the line doesn't dry out too much, and then the tyres can sort of deal with it. Right? It's certainly potential for that, where you get this condition where the track is ridiculously wet, but the wet tyres can't really get into the window because the dry line develops enough. But I love how we've got this gigantic circuit. It's one of the biggest circuits in Europe, obviously. Don't quite compare to the North Cypher, but with 50 odd cars, it's still a traffic jam coming through the final sector as they all go to start their lap. Right now, really, it's all about I think setting some banker laps in, and this is one of the teams where I'm excited to see what they can do in terms of banker laps. The 995 currently is second and first place in class in the first two races of the season, obviously winning Bathurst and almost getting a podium overall from silver class. The Aston is a car that is okay around here, is good in the wet. And I think that combination might give them a good qualifying spot.
Yeah, the Keck Sim Racing team and the beautiful Aston there. It does look awesome as it goes round there. But as you said, that's what 8 points they're ahead in the championship. But it kind of doesn't tell the story of Bathurst. They were dominant. They were so far up the field in the pro class. I mean, we honestly thought there was a chance that they could get a podium out of that.
Yeah, I remember towards the end of the race, they got a penalty, which really sort of scuppered their chances of getting that overall podium. But they were so far ahead of the rest of the silver class that the penalty was like, oh well, we'll just go in and we'll just come back out business as usual. It didn't really matter to them. It was just like adding an extra pit stop because they could. But the pace they showed was incredible. And whilst this isn't a track that necessarily suits the car that much, it's more than good enough, to be fast around here, and it suits the conditions. So once again, I'm expecting them to do well. And it's kind of been the tale of that class overall, of silver class. 4 of the top 5 cars in the silver championship are Aston Martins. I think it's first, second, fourth, and fifth. So it's a bit unusual that we're seeing this. Where all the Audis pretty much are in the Pro Set series. A lot of the Ferraris are up there as well. And then we just see Aston Martin dominating in silver.
I've got to say, look, Henrik Gamble is a very, very brave man right now. He's all over the curbs in these wet conditions. I would be very, very twitchy if that was me.
And that's just all about car setup, all about the work you've put in, making sure that this is a stable platform. Because quite often in qualifying, in the dry, you're taking a bit of stability out of the car to try and find that ultimate pace. You might make the rear a little bit twitchy just to get that better turn in and just deal with it, right? And that's how you get your ultimate lap times. But it's the complete opposite in the wet. You need to find that rear stability, especially so that you can get traction down out of corners, so that you can use curbs, and so you can carry speed through places like Eau Rouge, through Paul Frere and Blanchemont. You really see here that by how much speed they can carry through Blanchemont. I think that really tells the story of their setup. And you can just see they're pretty much committed like it's a dry track. It's pretty wild to see. And it is, I tell you what, so I've been doing this quite a lot during the week, running in the wet around here, because I have my own little race to do during the weekend. And this track, even in the Lexus, which is the car I drive, which is well known for being a very good car in the wet, even the Lexus struggles through places like Blanchimont with oversteer. So it is so nerve-wracking to be committed to those kind of corners. And Eau Rouge especially, that commitment that you can get just by really pushing the car to its absolute limits. By you lift off early and then you get straight back on the throttle and you hold it full throttle through especially the right and the left at the top of the hill. You'll see an earlier lift here followed by back on the throttle early to get that maximum speed on the Kemmel Straight. And the more you can cut that corner, the more curb you can use because of your setup, the faster you're going to be.
Yeah, momentum is one of the biggest things, I think, the biggest takeaways from this circuit. That entry from Radion into Eau Rouge and then up into the Kemmel Straight is one of the most important points on the track, because that's what's going to set you up for the rest of the lap there. Just have a look on the timing screens as well, down in 36th place, now moving up a little bit to, they make a time here, is the number 123 car, and I know they're very, very popular in YouTube chat. There's the Nissan outing of FFS Racing in the Chunky Boy in the GTR Nismo of Mike Noble, Andre Frank, Gergo Panker, and Jarkko Torvinen. I do love that car. It is just a big tank, a brute of a monster, but I wonder how well it's going to do around here at Spa.
But it is the kind of track, and right now the kind of conditions that suits it. It's got quite a long wheelbase. It's got a bit of weight to it that gives it that stability that often is why the GTR is a little bit slower these days. But in these conditions and on this track, I think this car might surprise. And I think it's kind of the same story with the Bentley, right? It's a car where, especially in the dry, it's not that great around here. It's not bad. It's not great. In the wet, it becomes a different beast entirely. And we still already 226s. I was saying that we were going to start sort of around the 228s. That was my expectation, because generally speaking, in a wet, the wet session, you go out there and you set a sort of like sighting laps, right? You go out and you feel for the conditions on the track. You maybe dial it down to sort of like 90-95%, and you just have a feel for how the track is driving, and then you start to ramp it up. And Statsenko is not listening. He's just decided he's going to go straight for his ultimate pace. They were obviously running in similar conditions in practice, so they already have some of that feel. But between practice and qualifying, the track has got wetter, as obviously there's no cars to develop that dry line, and Statsenko is putting in the same times anyway. So already in the 226s, I wonder if we're going to get down to the 225s track evolution.
Yeah, he's feeling very comfortable in that car, already half a second, although we see the 194 Bentley, that is the Racing Line Motorsport 194 of Akos Gyetban, moving up into second place, just 0.3 of a second behind him. And again, these qualifying times right now, we're only 10 minutes into the session. These really aren't representative of what we're going to see over the next 20 minutes, are they?
I think especially in terms of this field spread, I think a lot of these cars sort of, beyond or a second back are feeling for the track and sort of learning those conditions, right? Because we saw in practice, obviously the people watching the stream didn't, but we saw as the commentators, there was only really 2 seconds between the whole field, bar the odd outlier. And right now that 2 seconds only separates first to 19th pretty much. So I'm expecting we're going to see a lot of those cars sort of get more confident with the track, maybe get the tire pressures a little bit right, because obviously the temperature changes, the amount of water changes, how the tire pressures react, or how much tire pressure you have in the tires, right, as they heat up. So once everyone gets that sort of down and maybe makes a little bit of an adjustment based on how the track is driving, I think we're going to see a lot tighter field, and I'm kind of hoping we'll see a 225. And one team as well that I really want to see do well is the Butler Powell Motorsports cars, the 556 and the 557, because they've not. That is perfect timing as we switch to the 557 of Nico Hilleband into a wall. He's down in 41st. He hasn't put a lap in yet, which is why. But I assume there's probably been some car contact there, which unfortunately you won't be able to see. But that was perfectly timed. So it's these are two cars that I want to see do well, because the 557 and the 556 in Suzuka, I think they were both involved in quite major incidents that put them back in the sort of the 20s. I think it was 21st and 24th. The 556 didn't turn up to Bathurst for I can't remember exactly why, but they were unable to start the race, and the 557 DNF'd. So two teams that traditionally we sort of see as not necessarily. I don't think they're quite competitors for the championship win, but at least teams that should be up there, but fighting for top 10s on a consistent basis. Both just really struggling through the championship, and I think that's been a story for some teams that we've seen pace from certain teams where they've been up running at the front, and then they've just not finished the races for various issues. Mostly Audis as they crashed at Bathurst. I think pretty much every Audi team at some point.
I think what we need to do is get our producer Michael to make up a commentator's curse graphic for you, Luke, because that was quite impressive. And I must apologise, I am still here. I accidentally started talking and then realised my mic was muted, so I do apologise for that one, Luke, leaving you in the lurch like that. Now, one thing that we do have to remember as well is that this is only the first half of qualifying, isn't it? Because we have the very exciting and new for me Super Bowl.
And it's running very similarly to how we saw in the real life Spa 24 Hours, where the top 10 make it to the Super Bowl. You get one lap in Super Bowl to set your time. Obviously, the top 10 will start in the top 10 no matter what, but you get your out lap, you get your flying lap, and you get your in lap, and that's it. And none of those cars will be running around each other on track, as they'll be spread out so that we can watch A, the full lap on the broadcast, B, all those guys just get a lap to themselves on the track. If you qualify 10th in this, you start first in Super Bowl and so on and so forth, all the way up to the first car. So this is only stage one for a lot of these teams. But for those teams maybe in silver, maybe a couple of the wildcards who are new to this, who have, for those who know, the red cars are the wildcards. We've got 3 teams qualified from the Laguna Seca race that we had, I believe, just over a month ago now. The top 3 finishing teams in that. We've got Jensen Team Rocket as a wildcard, and we've got one other wildcard team, which is the 13 of Rory Alexander, who I don't actually think, I'm not sure if he's doing the qualifying, but and they're the wildcard teams for this event. Obviously 3 with a qualification and then 2 being invited. But the sort of comparison to the rest of the field is something I'm quite intrigued to see, especially for those Laguna Seca teams. They were people that didn't qualify for various reasons for this event, whether they couldn't do the full championship, whether they didn't quite make it into the top 40. But now they've been given this chance to show themselves on what is ultimately the top stage in the SimGrid family of events, obviously with the Endurance Cups and the Sprint Cups. This is the biggest event. This is the event that you want to be turning up for, and this is the biggest race of the event. So it's cool to see these wildcard teams come in and actually compete competitively with some of our more established teams.
Yeah, I've definitely got my eye on this number 23 car of the Jensen Team Rocket RJN team. Luca Burke, Ross McGregor, Tobin Lee and Michael O'Brien. Those are some very, very fast drivers, and I would not be surprised to see them in the top 10 whatsoever.
It looks bloody cool as well. Based on that Braun livery, it looks so nice. Obviously, some Jensen Team Rocket owned by the 2009 F1 World Champion Jensen Button, as you might have guessed, and obviously that's where the Braun cars come from. But unfortunately, as Michael's pointing out in our ear, Jensen wasn't able to race in this because he is over in Italy in Imola with the Sky broadcast, right? I think he's working on the Sky broadcast, so he's not able to take part. But we've at least got his team, so he's here in spirit, or his colours are here at least in the race, and already up to 16th in a McLaren, which is a car that I think, especially in the wet, it's a bit scary around here. It's a car that's fast in the dry, and I think in the race we'll probably see them progress forward. But in the wet, getting up to the top 15 would be a big achievement, I think.
Yeah, I'm watching the track because obviously we see the conditions haven't let up any whatsoever, Luke, and I don't see a dry line appearing as fast as maybe I thought it would.
Yeah, we saw it develop massively in the practice session, right? It almost looked like there was a dry track with almost like it looked like it had a parasol over it, and it was just stopping the rain. We do see this darker line right now, but there's still a lot of standing water on that line. We see the puddles that are still there and not quite being cleared. So it's not quite developing, but bear in mind there's still 14 minutes left to go. It's still going to continue to develop as we go through the session. And I think overall it will help to just bring that field closer. We already see, I said it was the top 19 that were within 2 seconds. Now it's all the way back to 28. So it's starting to congest at the top as everyone gets used to the conditions. Everyone sort of, pushes their time closer to the best they can do. And look at that split for first and second. The wildcard 96 car was that 1/100th of a second away from pole. It would be pretty awesome to see a wildcard car start on first.
It certainly would, and that was one heck of a time, and you got the impression that they are still dialing that car in, and there's a little bit more pace in there. So, yeah, that is a breathtaking time, and it shows not only their intent, but I think Mikhail Statsenko is going to have a little bit of a shot across the bows there, Luke. So they'll have definitely been paying attention to that one. Again, all the teams have to do right now is get themselves into that top 10 for Superpole.
A little shout out to the 888 Coach Dave team, because if you look at the top 23, which obviously we can see on the left side, there is one Ferrari that is in there, and there's not one Ferrari in the championship, I should point out. There's quite a few of them if we scroll down. It's a car that really doesn't suit these conditions usually, so the fact that they've already got it up to 6th is quite impressive. And maybe that's Coach Dave stepping in, helping them out with setup work to get this car working in these conditions. But it's pretty cool to see, because obviously they're 5th in the championship after we saw that really impressive 4th place in Bathurst, where at some points I think they could have probably fought for higher, but that 4th place has pushed them to 58 points. They're still 26 points off the lead, but if they can pull out a big result here, maybe even sneak onto the podium, who's to say that they couldn't compete for the championship?
Yeah, there's still a lot to play for. But yeah, it's going to be a huge, huge end to the season nonetheless. This is Lubomir Harava, and goes across, and what's that, 1.9 seconds off the lead. That's what, about 10, 11 places that they just took on that. Unbelievable. Yeah. And that is obviously the USB Racers, and if I'm not mistaken, they are in the Silver Championship, 5th place in the Silver Championship, Luke.
Exactly that, and we saw them right next to the 995 car, which is obviously the current championship leaders. So if they can sneak ahead of the 995 in qualifying, oh, what a lap from the 192. Audi sneaks himself into first place right now, but the track is getting quicker. I said that it would develop. I said that we would see track evolution, and everyone's starting to set green times now. So I think we're going to see times start to tumble down as everyone gets comfy, everyone gets used to the conditions, and that dry line starts to appear. Now look at to Eau Rouge, or at least approaching Eau Rouge. You see that darker line. And that was a heck of... it just goes off. I was going to say that was a ton of commitment to Eau Rouge, but it was a little bit too much in the end. And he goes out wide at the exit of Radion, tries to take pit exit when he wasn't in the pits in the first place. And maybe, well, not maybe, definitely ruins that lap. But ultimately, already putting himself on pole so far. Pretty cool to see, and it should be big gains from this car right here, as they are up on their best time. They see 9 positions gained, about half a second. I really think that's going to be something that we see across this whole field now, as everyone gets into this dry groove that is slowly starting to form on the track, and everyone gets comfy with the conditions. I think we might sneak into the 225s by the end of this.
Could well happen. So let's have a look at Henrik Gamble. Now that is a very, very unusual position for Keck Sim Racing number 2 to be in at the moment, down in 30th place. Surely is going to have to... wow, okay, well I was expecting a big lap there, but he's into the pits. And, well, what on earth do we say about that?
Obviously, second and first place so far. And another car here, apparently there's on Huge Games over a second, or around a second at least so far. So that's just, I think, a testament to how much this track is evolving now. This 97 should shoot up the time as it crosses the line. It goes all the way up to 18th, only 1.3 off, and we're starting to see, as I said, the field congesting. Everyone getting within sort of that 2-second window, and eventually there's going to be a time where 1/10, 2/10 could be the difference between 30th and top 15.
Well, this is awesome. Awesome stuff. I would quite like to see how our new challengers are doing at the moment in the number 23 Jensen Rocket car at the moment. I think they are still on track. That was a car, I'm pretty sure that was a car facing the wrong way at the exit of Radion and Eau Rouge there. That's not what you want to see.
Easily done by the car 11 there, as they spin out in probably the scariest corner on the calendar for the SimGrid World Cup. Thrustmaster. Then here we go. Here's the 23 on board now with them. Last time round, only doing a 230. I'd assume probably a tyre warming lap, given the fact that it was about 3 seconds off their current pace. I did say that this car is a car that doesn't suit the conditions, right? So if they can get into the top 15, that is a big win for the team, because during the race, obviously the entire 24 hours is not going to be wet. We probably will see those wet stages. I think we're looking at sort of every 3 and 4 hours. We're expecting there to be some significant change in the track conditions. Doesn't improve that time round. Actually, no, that was an outlap. There we go. That's why. You can't improve much on an outlap as he nearly goes into the 6-minute markers. But so we're sort of expecting the race there to be a fair bit of dry running with those odd showers mixed in. So if they can get up to respectable, say, top 15, if they can sneak into the top 10 somehow, there's a real chance that this car could be right at the top come the end of the 24 hours.
That is what you call absolute commitment coming up through Eau Rouge there, and you can see the car twitching left and right, hits a puddle and losing a little bit of traction there, but still keeps the foot in. Luca Berg, currently in P17, is absolutely on it right now. We'll wait and see what sectors are saying as he comes in towards the corner there, and really pulling a lot of curb there on the entrance into Lecumbe there, down in towards turn number 9, and then on the run down towards Bruel. Wow, this is quite a lot from Luca Berg.
Yeah, we saw just above Radion, we saw that big twitchy moment. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this track in the wet, there's like a groove in the track there that sort of, it tends to form almost like a river across the track. So every car you will see will have some sort of moment through there where, they'll start to aquaplane for a moment. And that's really where A, the traction control helps quite a bit. And B, those cars with that rear stability will be able to essentially just drive through it like it's not there. So that's a place where I know as a Lexus driver I can basically ignore that puddle. That's what the Lexus does. It sees a puddle, it just says it's not there and it drives through it. But when you're in some of those cars that naturally are more twitchy, even in the dry, like this one, the McLaren, even in the dry, is a twitchy car. When you touch those puddles and get that moment of aquaplaning, this car just gets all over the place. And you see, even when he tries to touch those curbs, we saw the Bentley earlier was riding the curbs like they were completely dry. This car getting onto them, and he's still using them to maximize the track width, but you can see how leery, you can see how scary it is in this car.
Yeah, this thing is looking very, very fast right now. Surely this has got to be an improvement on his current time right now. Just coming up through Blanchimont and then in towards the chicane, passing cars like they're just standing still on the track, down into the chicane. This looks very, very fast. Luca Berg needs something, though, to get into the top 10, to get into the Super Pole. He's currently 1.3 off just now. What can he do across the line? He only improves by a 10.
He was up by about 3/10 coming into the bus stop, and then I think maybe got a little bit spooked by that Ferrari in front, lost a little bit of time stuck behind them. Obviously, the car didn't actually interfere with their lap, but I think it's one of those ones where you're not really sure where they're going to go, and it unsettles you a little bit. But yeah, identical to the car in front of them, but obviously by virtue of doing the lap second, they stay behind. But now you're just starting to see how close this field is. Look at that, all the way down to 39th. Even I'll throw in 40th. Why not? 2.2 seconds to pole. That's a heck of a close field. Just see, with 5 minutes left, pretty much everyone is out on track now, putting in those lap times, and pretty much everyone is improving as well. James Bacon, I know, is a guy that puts in a lot of time practicing for events. I think actually for qualifying, he did nearly 200 laps to get into this series. So I'm expecting he's a guy that's put in a fair bit of time in every condition, so should know how this car handles in the wet. And there we go, he improves up to 18th, puts a hefty chunk on his previous best. So he's starting to improve now, and obviously a silver class car, so even 18th is pretty good when you're in silver.
And having a look at the timing screens there, I'm pretty sure my eyes didn't deceive me. We saw the GTR was up into 6th place. I think they might have been maybe knocked down a couple of places. That would have been the car number 123 was definitely up into the top 10. Yep, 6th place there for Mike Noble in the FFS Racing Godzilla. The chonky boy is doing it. So he's on a mission right now, and from what I'm hearing, half a second up already, Luke.
And he's only halfway through the lap as well. There could be a heck of a lap going on here. I'd love to get on board right now and just see how he's working with that steering wheel, see how much he's having to fight with the car if possible. You can see the commitment here. Can he get on the curb? No, he stays away from the curb. So he's using that dry track rather than the curb just to keep that traction. You saw the commitment as he changed from the right to the left, right? And the car just stuck. So this car is looking really stable right now. And I don't think it's any accident that the Japanese cars riding great in the the wet conditions, because obviously Japan being a place that rains loads. So you always see the Nissans and the Lexuses coming alive in these conditions. There's cars all over the place. The Nissan doesn't care, drives straight through it. This is a heck of a lap. This might even be first place.
Come on, Mike. He's channeling the energy of Jimmy Broadbent through him right now. We can feel all the support on YouTube chat down towards the chicane, and this is like something out of Days of Thunder. There's cars everywhere on the track through the chicane. What is Mike Noble going to do? 6/10 up at the moment. This could be it. This could be pole for the GTR. He goes across the line. What can he do? It is his pole for the GTR 226.487. Oh my goodness, I can feel YouTube just erupting right now with support for that one.
Nippon Steel on top. Who'd have thought? Who'd have thought? And I want to see that Bentley as well. Go and join him towards the front. We saw the 194 was doing well early on in the session. Let's get a Bentley and a Nissan front row. Why not? And we're hearing that Macaulay is being threatened with being fired from his team if he doesn't get top 10. So the Graphics engineering car has a bit of work to do. He's only a couple tenths off, so it wouldn't be too hard. And the Mercedes is a car that likes these conditions, given the fact that, you know, that front engine nature, well, not nature, I mean, it is literally front engine, like the Nissan. Oh, no, the Nissan, is the Nissan? Yes, it is. I'm being stupid. Yes, it is. The engine is in the front. You know, all those front engine cars generally are pretty good in the wet. The Mercedes not quite compared to, you know, the Lexus, Nissan, Bentley, but it still does like these conditions. It is quite a stable platform, and that stability, I think the real corners, right, where you gain all these time compared to something like a Ferrari and McLaren is Blanchimont and Eau Rouge, right? Because those cars, when they get twitchy, they have to stay off throttle through the corner, whereas things like, you know, all these front engine cars, they can just get back on throttle through the corner and not really care. You know, so they can just get back on throttle so much earlier, and that means when you have these long straights that, you know, Spa is so well known for, these high-speed sections, all those front-engine cars can gain a lot of speed. And talking of gaining of speed, this car is up by a ton, up to 8th place. He saved his job for now, but it's not the end. There's still 2 minutes left to go, so we might still see some improvements from the car behind.
That's the equivalent of having a gun held to your head. Poor Joe Macaulay in the Graphics Engineering SLS AMG makes it up into 3rd place, but for how long? Because the times are coming in thick and fast. We've got a minute and a half left to go in qualified, and one person who's not going to be improving is Adam Chmielewski in the... Now, how do we pronounce that in a safe for broadcast manner, that team name? I'm going to throw that over to the adjudicators on that one.
Do we throw like a
Where's
oriental
height?
spin on it?
Where's height? There we go. Wishita, there we go. That's exactly how we pronounce it.
We'll go with that one.
Campbell in the Keck Sim Racing now, absolutely ablaze at Bathurst, 36th position in the Keck Sim Racing number 2 car, and I was not expecting to see that at all.
Yeah, and Aston Martin as well. I was saying a car that sometimes likes these. It can be a bit. I think it's very setup dependent. This car. It's. I always like to call it a malleable car, where you can sort of design it to, you know, your own driving style, and really get it working how you want it, rather than you having to adapt to a car, which maybe you might do with something like a Mercedes or a Porsche. I've just heard Nico was half a second up on his lap time there, and that would have been good enough for a top 15. And then just goes wide, and Blanchimont trying to carry too much speed. He does have enough time for one more lap, so I think I would quite like, actually, if he could follow for that final lap if he is going again. It'd be pretty cool to see, because it is a team that it sorely needs a good performance. Obviously, it's an Audi. We were saying the Audis don't quite like these conditions as much, but I know Nico prides himself on his wet conditions driving, so he's not going to be happy with the 25th.
Yep, and that's it. All going to be done. Well, there we go. So it's now or never for a lot of the drivers. Martin Laurent is not going to get another lap in, because that is it done and dusted. And I do like the little subtle nod there, the 404 connection lost racing card there.
This car is definitely working, because he's green on his time, so he might still be able to improve here and get up towards that. We see that gaggle drive, the 125 down to the 69. If he can get into that, he gain a few positions in class. Let's see if he improves on his time as he crosses the line for the final time. He does not improve, so he stays 31st and immediately turns right into the wall. And look at the time, but all those cars sort of 13th onwards, I think, are still trying to fight for the those positions. I expect maybe the cars 14th back are a little bit too far behind to find those 3/4 tenths on a Bramy. But the 25 Audi right now is improving on his time. But so is the 49 car, who, you know, they're all on hot laps here. The 36 car can't quite make it in. We see they've gone into the pits now. So I think it's mostly the 8 and the 25s that are competing for those final positions in the Super Pole session. Remember, this isn't the end of qualifying yet. Can the 25 make it? The 25 is going to cross the line first. Bramy is further back on his lap, but they're both up on their times, and they're only half a second, or half a tenth of a second, I should say, difference in their previous lap times. So this could be tight for the 10th place.
Yeah, we'll see as they're coming through the final couple of corners now. Mia Bonka in the Mook Motorsport 25, currently in P12, and he's looking so good. He's got a little bit of traffic going in towards the final chicane. That'll maybe give him a little bit of a boost coming out of the corner there.
I think that Audi in front, it might have blocked him a little bit, I think, through the bus stop. Yeah, he lost so much time in the bus stop because of that Audi, which I think was also on a hot lap, but it looked like that car just screwed up the corner a bit, so it's ruined out the death on his final lap. We see the 25 now does not have another attempt, so it looks like the 49 has survived, and it's a good job that happened because the 49 spins out on his final lap.
Straight on.
But he's going to make Super Bowl anyway, and obviously being the virtual world, oh, that's a heck of a hit. If that's real life, you are not starting the race. But luckily in the virtual world, all you do is that. And there you go, the car's fine again. But
wow.
A heck of a hit, and very lucky for the 49 team that the car behind didn't improve the times. There we go, there's the timetable. Interestingly, no car is set more than one best sector. And we see actually, it's 3 different manufacturers, right? The Nissan being good in that first sector, the Mercedes surprisingly coming back in the middle sector, which normally you'd attribute to something like an Audi or a Porsche, but the Audi actually doing the best in the final sector, which is a top speed sector, which is why you'd probably give to the Mercedes. So it's a bit topsy-turvy as the cars are sort of trading best sectors, and we see. Okay, we go all the way down to the AMs. These are the wildcard teams. The Mercedes, the 96 car, beating the Jensen Team Rocket 23 by about a second overall. But that 2:26.6 is a competitive lap time, and even, to be honest, a 2:27 in a McLaren is bloody good.
Yeah, certainly is, and I think that's going to have to play itself out over the weekend. Now they've done their part, but yeah, looking at those top 10 times that we've got coming through, as we have a quick look at the silver finishers there, 2:27.249, the fastest there for the number 36 entry, and yeah, a really good time there. But you just see how competitive it is there. You've got 8 cars within a second of each other there, and the Audi's really doing strong. But the Aston Martin in the silver class is really holding its own, isn't it?
Yeah, but interesting, the number 17 car, 14th in class and quite a bit further back overall. That is the current 5th place car in the championship. They're already at risk of falling away from, the 995, which you see in third, is the championship leader. The car right behind that 125 is second place. So, the 17 really is at risk of losing out, on the other championship rivals here. And the 905 was struggling early, so it's impressive to see that they came back. They're still a little bit of a ways off in terms of track position to the 8 and the 36, but the fact that they, none of those cars made Super Pole, so the 36 will start 11th, and the 905 will start 17th. It won't take that long to catch up. And hearing in my ears now that Super Pole is going to be in 7 minutes' time, we're going to see how many manufacturers is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. I count 5. Yes, 5 manufacturers in the top 10 competing for the top 10 positions. And can anyone catch that Nissan? I'm not sure.
We'll have to find out what happens with the track, because obviously it will change in between the qualifying sessions. But interestingly, up until 2 minutes before qualifying had finished, Luke, Audi had 5 cars in the top 10, and that was knocked down to just the 3 cars by those 2 Mercedes.
And the Audi is the best car at Spa right now. I would say that with the current balance of performance, occasionally a BMW might compete over race pace, and the Mercedes can certainly compete over race pace as well. But I think over that one lap pace in the dry, the Audi really is the dominant car here. But it's just those conditions, right? Throwing in the torrential rain that we're seeing, whilst the Audi is still good, it's a car that doesn't quite suit those conditions as much as maybe the Mercedes, the Bentley, and the Nissan, and that's why we're seeing those cars come into life. Come back. Well, not come back to life because none of them died, luckily. But they're at least improving in their performance, and that's why we're seeing a bit of a surprise contender for first place. Obviously, a track where the Nissan isn't that bad in the dry. It's by no means the best car, but it's a car that's competitive in the dry. In the wet, it becomes a different beast entirely. And in the wet, we see. I mean, if you look at those sector times, compare the Mercedes to the 96 Mercedes to the 123 car, half a second difference in sector 1, 4/10 in sector 2, back in favor of the Mercedes, and then almost identical in sector 3. So I think that's a sign of partially where those cars are really good. Probably that Nissan's gaining all its time in Eau Rouge and getting a long run down the straight. But that Mercedes seems to be set up more for the corners, probably a bit more downforce, probably a bit more sort of like camber. So the car might be a little bit more twitchy, which is why it might be struggling in Eau Rouge. But that cornering speed through the middle sectors is bringing it back towards the car. So it's so intriguing to see that in qualifying. And then you think about the implications for that in the race, right? Where those cars behind, they're going to be slower in sector 1, and then they're going to catch them in sector 2. Then they're going to fall back in sector 3, and we're just going to have this dance in that top 10 in the race. And we're already seeing a bit of a dance in qualifying.
Now, Luke, the other thing I was going to bring to your attention is we've talked about the weather that's changeable right now. But the other thing is, remember, it's only the one flying lap that these drivers are about to get on the shootout, isn't it?
Yeah, and one thing that's going to change between qualifying now and the Super Bowl session is that the track will essentially have a bunch of standing water on it again, because the game itself the sim. I will get crucified in chat if I don't say that. The sim will simulate the track beginning to pool up water again. There won't be that dry line, especially for the first couple of cars on track. You can just see on the track that there is just no dry line now. So when we get to qualifying, these teams in the Super Bowl session are going to have a slower, a scarier, a more unstable track to deal with. And if they can't adapt to that, we already saw the 49 had that big spin, in Super Bowl where they had that spin in Blanchimont in the final time on a track that was drying. Now that there's more pools of water there, maybe the Audi might fall off again.
It certainly might. So we've only got just 3 minutes left to go until our top 10 shootouts. For me, this is obviously a brand new thing for me, Luke, because I just joined you guys last time during the actual race itself. So qualifying, I mean, it's a proper 4D chess match that we've got going on here, because you've got your top 10 going through to the next stage of qualifying, but even then you've got absolutely no idea how it's going to pan out.
Yeah. It is our lovely presenter, Mr. Michael Hamlet, who also joined me on that Paul Ricard race, if you were there to watch it, is going to come in and give a better, more in-depth explanation of how qualifying works now.
Hello everyone. So the Super Bowl will work with the top 10 cars from the qualifying session that we've just held. Will compete in the Super Bowl. Each car will be released from the pit lane individually. We'll start with P10, followed by P9 and P8, and work our way down to P1 from the initial qualifying session. Each car will be ordered out by the race controllers at a permitted time, and we'll be ensuring that there is a adequate gap between each cars. You'll only ever see 3 cars on track at one time, so we'll have plenty of opportunity to watch the full onboard of every car as they complete their one flying lap. Each car only receives 1 out lap, 1 flying lap, and then 1 in lap back to the pit lane. So it's 1 lap to make it all count and try and obtain the pole position for the very first 24 hours of Spa.
And one thing that you can take from that, the fact that the car that qualified 10th in the initial session goes first, means that those cars later on in the session might have slightly drier track to work on as those cars have cleared. Obviously, with only 10 cars on track, there's going to be very limited track evolution, but there might be some, and that might be where that position you've gained by that first qualifying session might come back in your favor.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you there on that one, Luke. Having had experience of something similar up here in Scotland that we do, what you also have to factor in is the pressure, because all those, say, 7, 8, 9 cars have already set a time, and then it's all on you. That builds and builds and builds as the cars go down. So the later you are, yes, you might have more of an advantage on track evolution, but then it really ratchets up the pressure. You have to nail that. Whereas, you might be able to set a looser lap time, a less competitive lap time, and get away with it if you're further down the grids.
And that's where I look at these Audis and I think they're going to struggle in this session, because with that single lap, these cars, the Audis are well known in the dry for being unstable, for being twitchy. When you throw them in wet conditions, yes, they're still fast. They have a lot of downforce, but that twitchiness doesn't go away. It gets stronger. And we saw that with the 49 car. On that final lap, when you had that pressure from the car that was in front of them on track, but behind in the standings, that pressure was there on the car, and they spun out, right? So if you spin out during your hot lap, that's your lap gone, that's your qualifying time done, and you're back to 10th place, no matter how fast you were in the first session. Obviously, you still get a top 10. So if the 1, 2, 3 spins out, they'll still start 10th in the race. But it is such a scary position, especially for the 49 car as the first car to go out. Yes, you don't have the pressure of the other times, but you have that internal pressure of, I cannot screw up. I cannot set an uncompetitive lap time and just watch myself tumble down as these other cars come through. Pro Melton car here going first. I believe they're checking, where are they in the championship? I always forget. Yeah, down in 11th place. They're a team that I think at times they were competing right at the top at Bathurst, if I remember correctly. And then, like pretty much every other Audi at Bathurst, had a crash and lost out in a lot of position. But there we go. They're going to go out first. The start of the Super Bowl session, David. This is going to be awesome.
It certainly is, and what a person to lead it out. Samir Ibrahimi in the Pro Renvelten Audi R8 LMS Evo. Of course, their main big name that they've got that you will be familiar with is Yaroslav Honzik, aka Jardier, however you want to pronounce it, the YouTube legends. He is on that team, and like you said, they were so strong in Bathurst, and then a very, very unfortunate mistake, and that was their downfall, like so many other teams at Bathurst. Can they make amends here at Spa? We're about to find out. They head out for their outlap. This is Superpole then. One outlap, one flying lap, and then one in lap. Luke, I'm very, very nervous right now.
I'm not driving it, I'm nervous, yeah. But one thing that's going to be sort of intriguing is that outlap. The team that can get the tyres into the window best is going to have such an advantage, because generally speaking, for those of you, I'm sure most people watching are familiar with sort of tyre warm-up phase in ACC. It usually takes a couple laps. So you usually go out on 4 or 5 laps worth of fuel in qualifying, and you slowly work your way up to your best lap. When you're not quite on optimal pressures, you set your banker laps. You don't have that in this. Your first lap is the only lap you have to warm those tyres up. So I think we're going to see a bit of maybe a bit of weaving, a bit of... he's decided not to, clearly. He's just going to go straight along the track. But I think once we get closer to sort of the end of the lap, they do get up to pressure quickly, being wet tyres, but still there is that you have to heat your brakes up, which again does sort of... it can be a struggle sometimes in qualifying. In the wet, rather, to get your brakes warmed up, as the cooler track conditions, the cooler air temp, and the water in the air really just starts to bring them down. So it's vital that you get your car in the optimum window, that you've got your tire pressures right in the in your setting. Already you can see that car sliding all over the place as he touches the curbs. He does not want to be doing that on his hot lap.
No, he certainly doesn't, and you can see him trying to put steering inputs into the car, and the car is thinking about it, and saying, nope, no thank you, no very much. Samir Ibrahimi then in the Pro Renvelten car, halfway round the track. This is heading down towards campus, and then in towards Stavolo in just a couple of seconds' time. You can see the car sliding about from underneath him in that 49 Audi R8 LMS Evo, and we saw the Audi R8 LMS Evo out last weekend for real life at Goodwood's. Gordon Shen behind the wheel, and slightly drier conditions, I'll admit to that. But yeah, these cars are a very, very fast capability underneath them, and it takes one heck of a driver to properly put that down on track.
If we're talking real life, I mean, the real life Spa 24 Hours was last weekend, and what happened? Well, there was Audi's right at the top there. I think they finished second and fourth, or second and third in the end. With obviously there were the two other Porsches fighting with the Porsche eventually winning the race. But weirdly enough, the Porsche isn't actually OP here like it is on most other tracks in ACC. So for once, we've not actually got one in the top 10. And there we go. We're going to start the hot lap now as he approaches La Source. Has to get his braking marker perfect here. And you have to remember, look at the water on track, how much water there is, all those pools. You have to try and avoid them in the braking zone because any amount of aquaplaning will ruin your lap. He survives the first corner. It's a good start. We're now approaching probably the hardest corner in the wet. I expect you're going to see a bit of a lift before the curb and to try and get back on throttle as early as possible. Carry that acceleration through the corner and up to the straight. Is he going to go off? Is he going to go off? I'm not quite sure if he invalidated the lap.
I think it's a valid one. Because remember as well, Luke, that those two corners, the first two corners, are completely unsighted for the drivers because when they exit the pits, they exit at the top of Eau Rouge. So they've got no prior knowledge.
That wasn't within inches, that was within millimetres of him validating the lap. And if he had done that at Eau Rouge, that would have been a nightmare for the 49th car. Obviously, would have had to go back to 10th place if that had happened. But just about keeping it together in Eau Rouge, probably lost a little bit of speed by having to drive like that. And we see this wider line, which you don't do in the dry. You tend to hug the curb in the dry because the car just has enough grip to survive it. But in the wet, you have to get wider. And talking of wider, he misses the apex of the corner there. It looks like Samir may be struggling to hold on to the car in these conditions with those pulls on track. The car is all over the place right now. This is another corner where it's scary, another corner where the Audi does not like to turn, but he keeps it on track once again. And I think in this, we're going to see a few cars invalidate their lap. We're going to see a few cars make mistakes. So if you're one of those guys that does get a valid lap, even if it's not necessarily the best lap, you're still going to gain a couple of positions.
Yeah, you certainly are. And if you've just joined us on YouTube, a very good evening. You are not watching Powerboat Racing. You are instead watching the SimGrid World Cup by Thrustmaster here for qualifying at Spa. This is the penultimate round of the SimGrid World Cup by Thrustmaster. And yeah, Stavlo looking a little bit problematic for Samir Ibrahimi in the Pro Rennfelten Audi 49 car. And look, this is going to be an achievement just to finish this lap, isn't it?
Yeah, this car's been a bit all over the place during this lap, but sometimes that can actually signify pace. You know, the fact that the car is sliding into the corner and he's holding onto it means that he's carrying a lot of speed. So if he hasn't been scrubbing off too much pace, I mean, he's going to be first at some point during qualifying by virtue of the fact that he's going to be the first car. But this is going to be the banker lap. This is going to be the one that everyone is comparing to. And what is it? It's a 235?
Wow.
A 235?
I might have been mistaken. Maybe it is Powerboat Racing that we're watching just now, but it's onto the Ferrari, the Yaz Heat Ferrari of Andrea Capoccia in the number 2 car out of the chicane to start his flying lap. Here we go then, Luke, and we wait with bated breath on the run down to the first corner.
And I think all of that I think that's actually going to be a surprisingly competitive time because we see how much water there is on the track. It's going to be so difficult to just get any traction, especially for the Ferraris and the Audis, right? The lack of weight on the rear axle can sometimes really hurt the car, you know, and that twitchiness that the car has. Talking of twitchiness, another car almost losing it in Eau Rouge again, just about validating the lap. So it's still going to be a lap time, but that is something you do not want to do because, you know, I was speaking about how you lift off early for Eau Rouge and you try and carry speed through the corner and carry that acceleration through the corner because you want to get that run on the straight. And when you get that big slide like that, you have to lift off through the right-hander. And what that means is you lose time all the way through the straight. You know, you don't just lose time in the corner. It's all the way up to Lake Coombs that you lose more time. So I think really what we've seen so far is that there's pools and standing water in Eau Rouge and none of these cars are prepared for it.
Yeah, and the pools of standing water look to be very quickly cleared because Andrea Capoccia not having the understeer moments that we saw from Ibriami in that first run there. This already looks a little bit faster as we go down on towards the run towards turn 12, aka Puon, one of the iconic corners here at Spa. And that Ferrari is looking twitchy, nervous as he power slides round the corner. Surely that's invalidated the lap there. He might have got away with it there. Still on the go down towards turns 13 and 14. He's down in towards campus just now. And yeah, doing his best Tokyo Drift impression there.
Yeah, luckily this is one of the few tracks in the sim where sometimes the track limits aren't to the white line. Sometimes it's those red curbs. You can just see that this Ferrari does not want to work right now. Coming through curve pool there, and the lack of speed through the corner means again you lose time all the way through the straight. So I think we're going to be surprised by how competitive that 235 is, because this track is flooded.
It certainly is. I think he might be able to improve on it possibly, but we're through launch one, and that is looking much better. Down in towards the chicane just now, and I say much better, that's a very relative term because this is still a very ginger lap, a very slow, timid lap for these cars. They're used to going much faster. Tries to light the tyres up, can't do it, goes across the line. 2:34.6, so it is faster, half a second, but that is still nothing to write home about.
And 8 seconds off what we were setting in the in the previous qualifying session. That's just, we were speaking about that track evolution that happens with the amount of cars on track. When you don't have cars on track, this is how slow and how scary it is. But the Mercedes now is a car that should suit these conditions. Having that rear stability should mean that when it's really wet like this with all these puddles, the car is a little bit faster. So I'm expecting now, I'm going to make a wild prediction here. 1, 2, 3 on pole, 194 second place. I would put money on it. I'm genuinely.
How much money are you wanting to put on it, Luke? Because this is live. This is getting recorded.
I've got a 20p coin on my desk. You can have that if I'm wrong. But we see already. I mean, you just look at that. The car looks so much more stable through a Rouge, and that just allows them to carry more speed through the corner. Through the straight here on Kemble Straight, right? And that's just where that stability really just shines through in these cars. You know, in the dry, sometimes you see the Mercedes struggling a little bit to sort of keep up with, you know, your Audis, your Porsches. It is still a brilliant car in terms of its speed, but you know, sometimes these cars in the dry aren't quite up there with the mid-engine and the rear-engine cars. But as soon as you get into the wet conditions, these things come alive, and I think we might see a big gap between those different car manufacturers.
I think you're going to be absolutely right there. This Mercedes seeming to handle these wet, slippy conditions a lot better, both in terms of traction and stability on that car. It's really making very light work of the conditions here. And the conditions haven't eased up any. There are still the horrible pools of water, especially around here, as our producer Michael has pointed out on the entry to turn 15, Stavolo. There is a massive puddle of water here that really unsettles the car. And it'll be interesting to see how this Mercedes does deal with it just through campus just now, and it's just coming up here on the entry to Stavolo where the car's really getting unsettled.
Yeah, but you just see, compared to the Ferrari and the Audi, that this car just through these corners can just sort of deal with the puddles. You can see that there's a bit of instability in the car, but it's not really coming through in him having to fight it as much. You know, he can drive through the corner and just stay on that limit a little bit nicer. So I'm expecting here we're going to see a bit of a gap develop between the 2 car and the 11 car. But sometimes it can be deceiving when a car looks stable. You think stability should mean pace, right? You know, the car's not sliding that much through corners, so it should be fast. But sometimes, actually, that sliding can be the difference. You know, can make a couple of tenths up. So we're going to see right now whether this prediction of the front engine cars ruling the day is going to come through as Macaulay comes to set his lap time. What's it going to be? It's a second ahead of the 2 car, 2:33.6 for the Mercedes, number 11 of the J-Lo team. Sorry, not the J-Lo team, the other team of Mr. Mercedes. This is the J-Lo team, the 211. I'm being told by the producer as the 211 crosses the line to start his lap time. Another Mercedes here. I think this might also be a sign now of track evolution. Is there any? Because if this car can set, you know, another half second on the 11 car, then maybe we're starting to see a couple pools just get cleared and the track evolving and confidence building in these drivers. and we might see some fast times by the end of the session.
Let's see, down through in towards Eau Rouge, and Radion stays away from the curbs, takes a little bit of the curb there, washes out to the left hand side, nowhere near as much still on the power. That is a nice line through in a wet track here at Spa, but yeah, glitching from left to right there as through in towards Les Combes there, and you can hear the revs bouncing off the limiter there as he struggles to get any sort of traction here, and through Les Combes without any issue whatsoever down towards Bruel, and this is looking very tidy, very fast. Look, just on your point earlier, you said about cars that look stable, look smooth, not always being fast. I would 100% agree with you, but I think that's the Mercedes problem in the dry, is that it looks just as solid as it does in the wet. I think in the wet, if the car's loose and it's sliding all over the place, you're naturally going to be slow. But I think if you're doing that in the wet and the dry, you can actually tend to be, as you said, that little bit faster. But yeah, I think the JLO team are going to be very, very happy with his effort so far.
And I think it's going to be just a sort of continuing theme right through this qualifying sessions. The rest of the cars set their Super Bowl times, that the cars that maybe traditionally aren't quite as fast in the dry really favour these conditions, and that's why I'm looking at the 194, the 123, and saying, go on, make it up to the top row. I just want to see that front row of two cars that normally you expect struggling to get into a top 20, because it would be a sign of the times in 2020 that the teams that are so well known for being successful here, BMW for example, 25 wins at Spa in real life. We don't even have one in the field. Porsche won this year, and we didn't have one in the top 10. We're starting to see some of these teams that are, or some of these cars that are not necessarily well known for being amazing here, compete because of these track conditions.
Malinowski in the 211 Mercedes for JLO team down in towards the chicane then for the final time, and looking very, very nice, trying to get the power down. Patience. Now you can put the throttle down. What's it going to be as he comes across the line? And it is a 232.4. Smooth, consistent and powerful. That is exactly what the JLO team wanted, and that's what they've got. 211 onto pole.
And I mean, if we continue this way, we might beat dry lap times. It must be track evolution that we're seeing. But now, a car that we were saying the Bentley is incredible in these conditions, right? At least in the sim. In real life, it's not quite the same story. But starting only 5th of 10 cars in the Super Bowl session means that if this is track evolution we're seeing across these cars, then this team's going to struggle. But if it is just teams, I think it's just these guys, setting their times, maybe getting in some information back to their teammates who are watching the other cars potentially, or at least maybe watching the stream, saying, "Oh, in this corner they're really struggling." We saw there the Bentley drove through a Rouge like it was a normal corner. If you see it once again, they hit that little groove where every car just aquaplanes for a moment, and the Bentley just doesn't seem to care. It just keeps on trucking down the Kemmel Straight towards Les Combes. How late is he going to brake? He's going to brake with the curb, pretty much where he brake in the dry. He's going to use those curbs on both sides as well, so he's confident in his car's stability on those really slick painted sections. And you can really just see that this car, it almost looks like it's in dry conditions and just driving slowly.
Yeah, the Bentley loves these conditions. This is Akos Gietvan in the Racing Line Motorsport, the first of 2 Racing Line Motorsports cars. This is the 194. They're currently 13th place in the championship just now, so an excellent result to get into Superpole for them. And yeah, they're well in the mix just now because this car is looking very, very fast indeed. Their sister car, the 192, is driven by Marek Schintz, and that is the Audi R8. That will be out, I believe that is next up. But Akos Gietvan looking very smooth, very consistent. Oh, little twitch of the brakes there, and the car just buckles under braking there, but through into the second half of the circuit and through into Campus with no real issue whatsoever down on the run towards Stavolo. And that car just looks so planted right now. As you said, look, it looks like it's on a dry setup.
And that's, I think we might see an even bigger gap now. We've seen back-to-back 1 second gaps. I think this might be bigger because this lap looks good. This car looks good right now. We might even sneak back into the 220s like we were in the previous qualifying session here, because I think this lap is looking really stable. How well is he going to take Blanchimont? Oh, he's a bit wide, but he keeps it. Does he keep that valid? I'm not sure. That might have been a bit too wide. We'll see. No, he's got away with it. He's got away with it. So this might be the new time to beat. How fast is it going to be? Is he going to get into the 220s?
Beautiful exit from the chicane there, a little wiggle from the rear end of that Racing Line Motorsport Bentley across the line, just behind Malinowski by a second, so it was all on that third sector there. So that means that the Racing Line Motorsport 194 of Acast Gaetvan down into second place. Next up then is the Coach Dave Academy 888 Ferrari of James Parker, and it's on the run down in towards La Source.
Well, I 20p.
Yeah. To be honest, you can have that 20p because I did not see that one coming. I think that third sector really messed up Acast Gaetvan there, and the run through Blanchemont just a little bit too wide, a little bit too keen. But here we go in the Ferrari. How is it going to take Eau Rouge and Radion a little bit of the curb there? And that compromises his line out massively. You could see him having to lift off there, I think, on the right-hand side there as he hit the curb. So he got through it okay, but I think he's lost, from the looks of it, a little bit of speed on the Kemmel Straight here.
But it's better than what the two did, where they had that big washout moment. So it might still be the best Ferrari on the grid if it can survive the rest of the lap. He's using the curbs on both sides once again, so confidence in the car. A little bit of a twitch there to get it over to the left, but sometimes it can actually be helpful as you position yourself for the Malbody turn. Down to Brazil, how late is he going to brake? He brakes with the curb, so a lot of confidence in this car's ability to slow down. He gets that sort of double apex for the sort of the what is it? I guess it's a hairpin, right? The Bruxelles. Now into speakers, doesn't quite kiss the apex, does get quite wide onto the curb, so he's using that painted area that is so scary in some of these cars. I think the commitment through Pouhon is going to be a real sign of whether this is a lap that's going to be up to the top, or whether this is just going to be consolidating his place. Not quite at the back in top 10. And it looked pretty good, it looked pretty fast. He was able to get wide, able to get back towards the apex of the corner in the second half of Pouhon. So I think it's good so far, but he gets wide into this chicane. It might not be the end of the world, that might just be about half a tenth, if not a little bit less, because sometimes that wider line can give you a little bit more grip as you stay away from the rubber. And obviously don't kiss the curb on the inside, which can unsettle the car. But once again, not quite getting to the apex for Campos. And now Stavolo, he does get to it, runs wide, does use curb once again, so a lot of faith in this car to stay straight.
Say what you like about the number 2 Ferrari, Andrea Capoccia. He looks like an absolute boss going sideways round half of the circuit. Might not have been the fastest. I don't think this is going to be particularly fast for James Parker. We'll see. He goes a little bit wide, a little bit on the curbs on that left-hander there, down in towards the chicane here. I think he's going to end up P3 or P4. With a 233 or a 234, we'll find out through the chicane. Nice exit through the chicane, and James Parker for the Coach Dave Academy 888 Ferrari goes across the line, 4th place. Called it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we see he does beat the 2 cars, so I think part of that was just not having that washout moment in Eau Rouge, right? The Ferrari seemed to be struggling a little bit, I think, with that middle sector, just getting power out of each corner. The pace they can carry through the corner is not bad, but the lack of rear traction in these conditions may be harming them a bit. And now, quite literally, the Wildcard is the top 10 here. The 96 car of Sadmax Metalworks, one of the teams, I believe, that qualified from Laguna Seca. I can't remember where they finished. I think they finished second, off the top of my head. But it's been a while since I did that event. But let's see exactly how well they can do, whether they compete with these pro cars. Now the pressure's on them. But really, I think in terms of pressure, they're probably in the best place because they're not competing for the championship. Because they're that wildcard car. They're just here to do as well as possible at Spa and Spa only. So maybe that lack of pressure might mean that Philippe Simard comes in with a little bit more, not necessarily a lackadaisical approach, but a bit more aggression and say, well, I'll either set a really good time or I'll just start 10th, and push a bit harder, push to get maybe into the 231s. Maybe even seek a 230 if we get down there. I would be surprised if they go for that sort of philosophy.
Well, like you say, it's the whole thing of that they're wildcards in the championship. They've got nothing to lose in terms of championship points and everything to gain in terms of raising some eyebrows and possibly taking a couple of scalps of some championship regulars as well. But Philippe Simard in the Sidemax Motorworks Mercedes here, looking very, very composed. This looks very fast right now. Knows exactly where the standing water is, and just letting that car do its thing in a nice, controlled, fast fashion here. I think this is looking very, very good indeed.
And you can really see the amount of research these teams have put into the track, right? Into learning this track in these conditions, because you can see which curbs they know they can go on and which they avoid. One that is criminal around here for just ruining lap times is the curb on the outside of Puon, because in the dry, you run as wide as possible. You know, you try and get right on the limit of going off track just to open up the corner. But in the wet, if you dip your tires out onto the outside curb of Puon, the car just stops turning, and you'll just aquaplane straight and just invalidate your lap. So you can see all these guys know exactly where they should and should not be putting the car. Once again here, knowing they can run wide, both on the entry and exit of Longchamp, using those curbs without risking spinning out. So all these guys know exactly what they're doing. And I just think some of them maybe coming in with a bit more confidence, some of them maybe with a slightly better setup work for these conditions. And now as the wildcard car approaches the line, it looked like a pretty good lap. Is it a fast lap? Oh, it's not quite good enough, not quite beating the 2:11, 4/10 off, putting himself second place so far with just 3 cars left to run. So not bad, but not great.
I'm still quite pleased with that one. I think he will be as well. Mikhail Statsenko then, this is one of the men to watch just now in the GTWR racing team. Currently second in the Pro Championship right now, and this is where all eyes are on right now, down in towards La Source turn number 1. And that car looking absolutely resplendent in its livery on the run down towards Eau Rouge. And yeah, this is going to be a heart and mouth moment for Mikhail Statsenko.
And obviously the 56 currently leading the championship didn't even make it into the top 10. I'll tell you what, that was wide on the exit already.
That was very
wide. I think they've got away with it for now, as he's still motoring down. Yeah, we can see it's still a valid lap, so didn't invalidate it, but that was about as wide as you can go. But yeah, the 56 currently leading the championship, which has finished 3rd and 2nd so far, didn't make it into the top 10. Whereas the 192 and the 1 car, you know, it's currently 2nd and 3rd in the championship. You know, the 1 2nd and 192 3rd, both did make it in. The 888 car, a bit of a dark horse in the championship, made it in as well. So these 3 cars really could start to pull back on the 56, or at least in terms of track position coming into Spa. And you'd think if those positions are similar at the end of the race, which knowing Spa they won't be, but let's say they are, then we could be in for a heck of a championship title fight in the final round at Kyalami.
I think it's setting itself up wonderfully, but it all rests on how things are going to go over the 24 hours at the weekend. And, you know, qualifying's one thing. You know, it's like what they say, times for show, points to go. And coming up to the end of the championship, that's exactly what it's all about. And one thing that's really surprising me about this Audi is how much Mikhail is absolutely having to drag this thing round by the scruff of the neck. He's having to take maybe 2-3 bites at the apex of a corner. And for me, this just doesn't look like a fast, composed lap whatsoever.
And we saw the 49 Audi really struggled with that extra, water on the track. Even the Ferraris as well, not quite being able to compete with the front engine guys, currently 1st to 4th. So I wonder if, as I was sort of predicting at the start, that we're just sort of seeing this split between he just invalidated his lap in Blanchimont. He went a bit too wide on the exit, and now he's not going to be able to set a lap time for the 1 car. We see him starting to slow down. I think he's still going to cross the line, and we'll see what the lap time would have been. But a validated lap means that they are going to start 10th going into...
Yeah, that's a real shame there for our abandoned lap for Mikhail Statsenko. All eyes now turn to Marek Shentz in the Racing Line Motorsports in the 192. This is the sister car to Akos Gietvan in the 194 Bentley. This is the Audi. Can they fare any better right now? We've not seen a good showing so far from the Bentleys. They have really, really struggled right now, look, in these horrid conditions in Belgium.
That was a real opportunity for the 1 Audi to as I was saying, to make some gains on the 56 car that, as I said, is not in the top 10. And now having to start down in 10th place by virtue of invalidating a lap means that all that track position you could have gained, all that initial time that you could gain just by virtue of not being in traffic at the start of the race is gone. And that 1 car now will have to fight his way to the front if he wants to pull time back. And they already had an issue. There was one of the Audi cars that had an issue at Bathurst. Another albeit much less significant issue coming into Spa, might be a big impact on the championship fight. But 192 obviously is another car that's competing. They're currently third. We see so far the lap looks pretty decent, but we know that this car, at least in terms of the manufacturer, struggles in these conditions. So it's already impressive to be in the top 10. Can they get any further? I'm not much sure.
Marek Schintz on road, and his teammates this weekend are going to be Jan Onorati, Igor Zanella in that Racing Line Motorsport 192 three-man team, and that's going to be one heck of a stint for them in this 24-hour race.
I'm one of the... I sort of prefer doing 3 mans for these. I've got a 24-hour Sebring race in 2 weeks, and we've only got I think there's actually 4 of us, but one guy's only doing like 3 hours of the race, so it's effectively
lightweight
2-man team. Yeah, he's going on holiday, so he's decided to start the race.
Oh, come on, that's the old racing driver's excuse, that one.
And the rest of us are stuck with the rest of the Sebring race, but you know, I want to do as much as lap time as possible. I'm always, as much as this is a championship, a lot of these guys are here because they enjoy sim racing, and it's as much a hobby as it is a competition, if that makes sense. And I think especially with these 3-man teams, it's just a sign that they all just want to drive a lot. Yeah, they all want to do 8 hours if possible, if not even more, if they can sneak an extra stint here or there. So it's not... Well, it didn't look particularly fast to Blanchimont, but he does keep it on track at least. I think the Audi just really struggling to keep traction down through that corner and having to lift off a lot to make it work. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting whether 3 or 4-man teams sort of seem to struggle. So a 3-man teams seem to struggle versus the 4-man teams, just owing to that struggle. And we said it looked slow, and it really wasn't. The 192 car going third, currently third place in the championship, now third place in qualifying. There's only 2 cars left. Oh, actually, no, sorry. There's only 1 car left.
Yeah,
the
here we go.
Steel Beast itself.
I
Can
want
we
to
get
hear...
on to first?
I want to hear chat going crazy for this because they've been absolutely loving Godzilla so far. And is it going to be the monster's time to shine in the rain here at Spa-Francorchamps? FFS Racing driver of Mike Noble in the 123 Nissan GTR roaring out of La Source. And this is our final car in Superpole tonight then, down through on the run towards Eau Rouge. And look at that car just absolutely gobbles up the track, no problem whatsoever, makes it look so easy and keeps a lot of speed and momentum going through the Kennel Straight here. It's on the run down towards Les Combes. And yeah, this is how you want to start your Superpole lap. 2:32.421 is the time to beat from Malinowski in the 211 Mercedes. Looking a little bit clumsy through Les Combes there, but decides to take a couple of bites of the cherry on through turn number 9 down in towards Bruel. And look, this is looking not too bad so far for Mike Noble, maybe a little bit wide there.
Yeah, but that wide line really comes into its own in the wet conditions. You get a little bit of time lost on the entry of the corner, but you gain it all back on that exit as you carry more speed out of the corner. And you're also able to properly set up for speakers, that left-hander. So it's not necessarily an issue to be running those sort of the go-kart lines, as they always call them. This car, although we always say that they look... Oh, he's going to spin out. No, he holds on to it. He holds on just about. I've never seen a car drift that much through Porn and not spin out. But the big Nissan that could, it's currently still surviving. Whether that's going to be a lot of lap time lost, I'm not really sure. I think owing to the fact that he actually carried quite a bit of speed through the drift, means that he may only lose a 10th or 2. So if he can set a really good lap time, he might still be onto the front row here.
Good Lord, that is some 4,000 IQ driver play at the moment from Mike Noble in the FFS Racing 123 Nissan GTR. Godzilla tearing his way, thundering his way around Spa-Francorchamps here, and our final car on track for Superpole ahead of this weekend's 24 hours of Spa for the SimGrid World Cup by Thrustmaster. And through Blanchimont with no problems whatsoever, looking very composed now after that wobbly moment down in towards the final corners here at the chicane. It's going to be a huge lap potentially for the Nissan GTR. We wait in the commentary box with bated breath. Mike Noble goes across the line. What on earth can he do? It's 5th place! Oh, a huge shock there. 5th place for Godzilla. 1.2 seconds, and look, that just wasn't enough, and that was all lost at Pouhon there.
Yeah, we just saw both with the Bentley and the Nissan really should have been front row, and annoyingly, thanks to my bet. They weren't. Maybe our commentators cursed them both, as I normally do. But
we need to see if that commentator's curse graphic is ready yet.
we need to add 2 more cars to it by the looks of it. But 2 cars that really just, the lap times look pretty good, but they had bits of issues on them, and it just sort of ruined the lap themselves. And that means we've got a Mercedes front row lockout. Is this F1? The 211 in first place with a 232.421, 4 tenths ahead of the 96 Mercedes with the 232.853. And look at those sector time for the Nissan in the first sector, and then it lost a bit of time through the middle of the sector. I expect it lost quite a lot of time, sort of in that middle area that we saw with Pooh, and it must have been there because realistically, it was only a 10th off in the final sector, and it was 2 and a bit tenths up in the first sector. So all that time lost in the middle sector by the Nissan means that it's only going to start 5th place, but it should be a car that does well in the wet conditions during the race, and I'm excited to see what they can do.
Yeah, we've got to say a huge congratulations then to the JLO team Mercedes AMG outfit of Maciek Malinowski, Kilian Ryan Meenan, Niels van de Kuyt, Cormac Ryan Meenan on pole position. But an even more awesome run for Simard in second place there. Philippe Simard. Yes, shall we see if we can have a little chat to the pole sitter?
Why not? Bring him in.
Well, there we go. A fantastic pole position there for JLO team. Maciek Malinowski, congratulations, buddy. That was a very wild lap there.
Thank you. I enjoyed that one a lot, and I'm really happy with the result. I was really tense looking at other laps, because I was starting like 4th car. I was like 4th car on the track. So later watching all those laps was really terrifying.
And how much did the conditions change from the initial qualifying session to that Super Pole session?
They changed quite a lot. The visibility is the same, but just the standing water on the track is so much different, and there's a lot more of it. And after first lap of Samir, who probably was surprised the most, I saw his time 2:35. That's like almost 10 seconds slower. That's a lot. And so I immediately changed the pressures for higher because, more water, less heat in the tires. They were still under pressure anyway, but, always something. So yeah, it was a lot more tricky. I had to lean on assists a bit more, maybe change brake bias or something like that. But essentially the car stayed the same and it did the job.
And coming into the race, obviously starting in 2 days' time, do you think you can hold on to that first and win this event overall?
That will be a really tough one, definitely. But I think as a team, we have skill to at least bring home a very good result in this one. I don't know about P1 and overall victory. It's going to be a tough one. Probably after that quali session and our pole position, we'll probably need to change our strategy for the race overall and who's going to be starting and so on and so on. Because, well, the pole position changes dramatically. For sure, we didn't expect that, so yeah.
Just ahead of the weekend then, it's just me, you, Luke, and a couple of hundred listeners on YouTube just now. What's the top secret strategy for JLO team?
Well, we'll for sure try to be consistent. Don't lose any time stupidly in the pits. Just do our job well. Be smart in the race. It's not always about just being the fastest. So that's what I was saying, that I think as a team we have what it takes to take such an event, because like we just know how to race in such endurance races. We did it. We did a couple of those, so for sure we're feeling comfortable going into this one, even though now of course with pole positions will be a lot tougher.
And in terms of the race, do you want more wet conditions, or are you a team that actually you think you'd prefer a bit more changeable conditions, or maybe more dry?
In practice, a lot of us were happy with how the car behaved in both conditions, with of course the same setup. And I think because the Audis here are super good, and I think to beat some of the Audi drivers, we will have to have a bit of changing weather. But also, that will depend when that weather will come and who's going to be in the car. Because, of course, some drivers will like the changing conditions more, and they can deal with that. For some, it will be, of course, a lot tougher, because they don't feel as comfortable with the dry setup or mixed setup on wet track compared to proper wet setup. So yeah, there's gonna be a lot of factors playing in coming race.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time. We want to send our best wishes to all of JLO team for this weekend.
Thank you.
And have a wonderful, wonderful race, Masik.
Thank you very much. Good night, guys. Cheers.
So our interview waiting room is quite full, Luke. I think shall we get some more people in here?
Why not?
Let's have a look. Let's have a chat with Andrea Capoccia in the number 2 Ferrari. Andrea,
Good
thank
evening,
you
guys.
very much for joining us, buddy. That was I hope you had your Wellington boots for the Ferrari, because that was a wild qualifying session.
Yeah, I had some problems, some issues in the first qualifying, as my wheel turned off, so I lost like 15 minutes just trying to fix it. And but yeah, P9 was good. And then in the Super Pole, I got out the track, thinking like, yeah, okay, my tires are just a little bit cold. That's why I don't have grip. So I started the flying lap, like not knowing that the track was so wet that the car wasn't gripping at all. So I went through a rouge, and I was literally dying. So I tried to. I mean, I'm happy that I closed the lap, but yeah, I was waiting for all the lap.
Yeah, we were hearing from the 211 car that obviously made it onto pole, right? That they were able to make some changes to their car just by seeing how much the 49 struggled. So was that something you didn't do between the first qualifying and the second qualifying session, that maybe was why you weren't able to compete right to the top? Or do you feel like you should have maximized your pace?
I couldn't see, because while the car 49 was on track during the lap time, I was in the pit lane waiting, like on the exit of the pit lane. So I couldn't watch him, and I couldn't know. Like when I started the lap, I didn't even know that he did like a 2 minutes 34, because I had everything shut off for like maximizing my FPS. So I didn't know that, like I didn't know the lap time he did. So I just said, okay, the track looks the same as it was in quali. Yeah, obviously, if I could, looking behind, I should have watched his lap time, but I couldn't watch him driving because I was already on track. As soon as he started the lap, I was already on track driving, so I couldn't know.
And what's been the reaction from Simone, Eamon, and Darren tonight then?
Yeah, they were like, they were crying. I talked to them now, and they said like, I don't even know how you closed the lap. And yeah, I mean, they're happy. P8 in 24-hour race is good, but yeah, I mean, if you start P8 or P1 or P15, doesn't really matter in a 24-hour race.
Yeah, we know the Ferrari is a car that I think, especially around Spa, probably suits the dry a little bit more than the wet.
Yeah.
So is that something you want in the race, where I think you're going to try and maximize those dry periods when they come?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in the race we will get rain at some point, maybe at the beginning, or like rain going to dry or dry going to rain, or maybe switching on and off from rain to dry. But yeah, I just hope like the weather doesn't get too sketchy. Maybe at the start, you can cope with it, because in a 24-hour race, you will never be like on 90% of your driving skills. You're gonna always be at 70, 75 because you can't do errors, because an error like costs you maybe a drive-through. If you get a drive-through, you get nearly 1 minute lost. So it's not a problem if you get rain or dry, but it's a problem if we start with rain, because as you saw in the driving, there is like a river up after the Rouge. So if 50 cars get on that river, probably we will all gonna die. But I mean, let's see. We're all good drivers, so I really hope the race will go really well.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight, Andrea Capoccia of the Yaz Heat number 2 Ferrari 488. A decent qualifying session, qualifying for Super Pole, and then playing boat racing in the Super Pole later on. Best of luck for the race, buddy.
Thank you guys. See ya.
Luke, let's have a chat, shall we? Let's bring in the two who you predicted were going to be on the front. Who I kind of hoped. It should have been the Bentley and the Nissan, shall we? So, gentlemen, a very, very good evening to you. We'll first have a chat to Akos Gietvan in the Bentley there. Akos, how was the conditions?
Good evening, guys. Well, it was tough, but man, I enjoyed every single cent and second. It was quite pleasant during the qualifying. I found the grip and everyone worked well. But in the Super Pole, I was a bit scared, to be honest. As I saw Samir's lap, he was struggling. So I went on the track and I was like, okay, just brake earlier than usual and push.
We're just watching the replay here, Akos, and you can see the car looking very, very twitchy as you put the power round on the corners. You'll be hoping then for slightly drier conditions in the actual race.
Actually, I don't, because I feel like the Bentley has a potential in the rain. We have a better pace than any other car. I can say that, I think. So yeah, we are hoping for rain, and we'll see what happens. But it's a 24-hour race, so...
We were expecting your car, I think, because it's a Bentley, to be one of those cars that was right on the front row. So do you feel like it's, although you made it to Super Bowl, that you didn't quite achieve what you could have, or do you think this is about as far as you could get?
I think top 5 is achievable for us, because the setup is awesome. The guys are hyped and ready for the challenge. So yeah, we are prepared for the 24-hour.
And then switching to Mike, if you were here, we were expecting the, based off your performance in the part 1 of qualifying, that maybe the Nissan could have been taking pole for the 24 hours race. So was that an opportunity missed for you as well?
Yes, definitely. Made like 2 major mistakes on my Super Bowl lap, unfortunately. Just too much. I just was driving too fast, too hard. Just wanted too much.
So, like the Bentley, the Nissan is a car that sort of favors these conditions at Spa. So, are you also hoping for a fairly wet race?
Well, I'm hoping on changing conditions, to be fair, because this car is decent in dry and it's decent in the wet. So, changing conditions should be quite nice.
And Mike, I have to ask, that moment at Puon, have you ever experienced heart failure like that before?
No, not really. There was quite something there.
It was quite something for us to watch in the commentary box, because we had absolutely no expectation that you were going to save that in the way that you did. Does the handling characteristics of the GTR make it a little bit more comfortable to handle moments like that?
Yes, it does actually. It's quite a stable car in both the rain or dry conditions, and it's pretty easy to catch a slide in this car.
And talking offsides, we're actually just getting a replay of your moment at Poo on here, and we were on board, so we didn't really get to fully appreciate just how fully Tokyo Drift send you actually put that car, and you can see there the back end absolutely stepping out, and yeah, that must have been a change of underwear moment for yourself.
Definitely. Yeah, I was yanking the wheel and my pedals quite hard at that moment, just to keep it safe.
And obviously, looking forward to the race at the weekend. I mean, we obviously jest. It's a fantastic performance to get yourself to the top of qualifying, and that's obviously no mean feat in itself. And fair enough, conditions were changeable in Superpole. What are your what's going to be your strategy for the team over the 24 hours?
I think it's just going to drive really safely. Not push too hard, just watch what everyone is doing pace-wise, and of course keep a good eye on the weather. And when it starts raining, I think we can definitely push a bit of lap time. But yeah, everything can happen, of course, but really looking forward to it.
You start side by side coming into the race. So, Akos, do you feel like this is a bit of a rivalry between you and the 123 Nissan?
Well, what can I say? We try to make it as a rival. But yeah, I know Noble. I saw him racing. He's crazy fast. And yeah, we will try to keep up the pace with him, I think.
Excellent stuff. Well, Akos and Mike, thank you very, very much, and best of luck to FFS Racing and to our other GTR racing team. And yeah, let's get some more cars in, some more drivers in, shall we? Oh, yeah. Let's bring everyone in. Let's have a party in here, shall we? Look.
Let's get it busy. Everyone's here now.
We're spoiled for choice. Luke, you can have first pick, buddy.
Well, I'll start with you, James. In the Ferrari, a car that really does not like these conditions. So I want to know, how much setup work did you guys put in just to get that 888 set up for the wet and for the torrential rain that you expect at Spa?
Quite a lot this week, and trying to second guess how heavy the rain was going to be was also a challenge, because you don't want to just suddenly change setups at the start of a session if the track's, slightly drier than what you've been practicing on, or slightly wetter. So yeah, we kind of got the car in a window that kind of worked across multiple conditions. And literally my only aim in the first part of quali was just to get in the top 10. I didn't mind where it was, because then obviously it's just down to one shot in Superpole. So yeah, so that was the only aim in the first session. Make sure we got in, and I luckily got a good lap in early, which allowed me to kind of just try and beat it later on. So I managed to skip the traffic and get that lap in. But yeah, it's been a challenge. I'm quite surprised with our pace, to be fair. I wasn't expecting to be as fast as we were. Even in the wet, the Audis are very quick around here. They're obviously not as fast as they would be in the dry, but they're still very quick. And the Merc seems to be pretty immense in the heavy rain. So yeah, I'm just happy we got in the top 10. And at the end of the day, it's a 24-hour race. It means nothing, this quali session. I mean, it's going to be completely pointless come the end of the race on on Sunday. But it's better to be at the front than the midfield, isn't it? At the end of the day.
Exactly that. And Marek, switching to you quickly. Obviously, you're in third place in the championship right now. The 56 car didn't make it into the top 10, and the one car wasn't able to set a lap. We saw Stasenko invalidated. So is that extra track position you're going to have on your championship rivals something that you guys are really happy with, or do you think it's not going to play that big an impact on the overall race?
It's obviously a really nice situation that we are in now, because we are in P3 and maybe we can gain something off of it, but in a 24-hour race, so many things can happen, and for that reason, I don't think it's going to make that much of an impact.
And then finally switching to Philippe, I'm presuming it's Philippe Simard, Phil S, our wild card entry. Philippe, that was a bit of a crazy entry to pop that up into second place there.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty good lap. It's very hard to judge, how much you want to push. It's so easy to get the lap invalidated, and we go in there with the same amount of rain, but then no cars drying up the track. We have no delta. It's very hard to judge how much you want to push. So in these conditions, P2, for me, it's just an amazing place to be.
Yeah. Philip, I'll come back to you in just a second. Marek, going back to yourself in the Racing Line Motorsport 192 car, Akos Gietvan we just spoke to in the sister 194 car. Is there any sort of collaboration between you two, or is it do you share the sponsor name only?
We are in the same team and we're working together, but obviously we are in different cars for the championship, so we can't share setups or anything.
Is there a case of obviously with the different cars, I would imagine it would just be a case of circuit knowledge. It would be a case of, letting know about standing puddles at different parts of the circuit.
Wait, can you repeat, please? I didn't.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying. I would imagine what you could share is knowledge about the current track situation. For instance, puddles or pools of standing water around the circuit.
Oh yeah, sure. Right, we have that to share, but the Bentley and the Audi are really so different that they behave completely different in the wet. So information from that way could be misleading as well a bit.
It'll still feel good to potentially beat them at the weekend, though.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Philippe, going back to yourself, obviously as the wild card entry into the season, what myself and Luke were discussing what that potentially means for the team. Does that relieve the pressure, if any, for yourselves?
I think so. Yeah, it's a bit less pressure. We want to do well, but we're going to talk about it probably tomorrow and before the race. But I think we do want to do well, but we're fully aware that people around us are in a championship. We don't want to be very aggressive with them or ruin some championship chances. So we're going to go there, try to win, but keep it clean and see where we are at the end.
Perfect. Luke, have you got anything else?
Well, we heard from the 211 car that obviously made it onto pole that he actually made some changes based off seeing how slow Ibrahimi was in the 49 Audi, that he adjusted his setup, brought up the pressures a bit. So back to you, James. Was that something you did between qualifying 1 and 2, and changing towards that more standing water, or was that not something that happened for you?
Yeah, 100%. I saw Samir's car trying to kill him every other corner on his out lap and then on his hot lap, and the track looked terrible compared to quali. So yeah, I raised the ride height up 1 mil each, front and rear, and just added a click of wing, just to have a tiny bit more, understeer instead of oversteer. Just change the balance slightly and just pray really. And to be fair, the Audi's probably got a slightly lower working window than the Ferrari. The Ferrari kind of feels good across a lot of conditions, pretty safe. Whereas the Audi can be a bit more peaky. So yeah, 100%. As soon as I saw people struggling, just tiny tweaks. But yeah, I made sure that just to make the car safe with the one-shot quali.
And I'm a Lexus driver, so I'm used to something with a very stable rear end. Right? So with that Ferrari, is it difficult to bring that in with the setup, especially in these conditions, to get that rear stability?
It can be because it's very aero dependent, the car. So you can make it quite twitchy and nervous, especially in the wet if you make it too stiff on the rear. So yeah, it's a fine balance. The Lexus would have absolutely flew in these conditions. You would have been loving it.
I know. I would have loved it.
But yeah, it does require a bit of fettling. You can't just drive it and go with the Ferrari.
Yeah, I think that's me done, David.
Superb. Thank you so much, James Parker, then of the 888, Coach Dave Academy, Ferrari, to Marek Schintz and to Philippe in the wildcard car, Philippe Simard. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Best of luck for your race this weekend, and we will hopefully be speaking to you on Sunday when you get the podium.
Thanks very much, David.
Thank you.
Take care.
So, look, there we go then. All that's left to do then, I guess, is just confirm and run down our top 10 ahead of the weekend.
And also to provide a bit of a setup, right? We're starting on Saturday, and we're going to be ending, obviously, on Sunday, given there's 24 hours. There's a heck of a lot of time that these guys have to be awake, have to be alert, have to be on track as well, especially with those guys in the 3-car teams. 8-hour stint. Well, they're not going to be doing 8-hour stints, but 8 hours of stints across those 24-hour races. It is endurance in every sense. It's endurance of the individual, endurance of the car, endurance of the team. It's such a challenge, and especially when you're at this track. I personally think this is the greatest car and track combo of any race on the planet.
It's up there for myself. I really, really do enjoy Spa, especially in GT3 machinery. It is one of the greatest challenges for man and machine, and it is going to be a spectacular 24-hour race here on the SimGrid World Cup, powered by Thrustmaster. Pole position then for Maciej Malinowski there in the number 211 JLO team machine. Philippe Simard in second place alongside in the number 96 Sidemax Motorworks 24-hour car. It's then Marek Schintz in third place with the number 192 Racing Line Motorsport car, and then it's Akos Gietvan in the Bentley Continental sister car 194 is alongside on that second row of the grid. Godzilla lines up on P5. Mike Noble for the Nissan GTR Nismo GT3 in the 123 FFS racing car, and then it is the number 11 of Joe McCauley in P6 there. We just heard there from James Parker in the Coach Dave Academy 888 Ferrari on 7th place, and then it's Andrea Capoccia in the fellow Ferrari in the number 2 car in 8th place, and then it is Ibriami in the Audi, no, number 49 Audi at the back with Mikhail Statsenko. I say at the back, but it is, that's your top 10 cars out of a massive, massive grid of cars here. And what a night of qualifying we've been treated to, Luke.
Yeah, 48 cars on the grid at Spa in changing conditions. First off, that initial first 5 laps sort of thing where everyone is in that massive bunch up is going to be incredible to watch. And going through the race, I go back to Bathurst, right, where after 12 hours, we still had that fight for the win, where it ended within a couple seconds, and we had final lap fights for positions. I think we're going to see the same in this, where a lot of the cars at the front stay in packs, and when we get to the end of the race, the cars on different strategies, maybe, whether some cars have used up, if we do have a fair bit of dry running, used up more tires early, for example. It's really going to be I think just awesome to see those battles progress through the race, and whether we get those rivalries. I'm trying to put this Bentley versus Nissan rivalry as something that I think we'll see through the whole race, because they're so similar cars. Both teams are so similarly paced. There's just those little pockets of battles that just in this racing would be awesome, but also in terms of championship implications, with the one car starting 10th, the 192 in 3rd, and then the 56 car. I'm not quite sure where they qualified, but not making it to Super Pole means that they're going to really bunch up in terms of championship position.
Yeah, they certainly are. And just before we close things out, another point to make. In the top 10, we've got Mercedes, Audi, Bentley, Nissan and Mercedes, Ferrari, Audi. That's 3 rows that we've got of the same make of car. And that is going to be an awesome sight on the rolling start.
And for people like me who are not massive fans of Porsches, a very nice top 10.
It's a nice difference, isn't it? It's a nice little fantasy.
It's not very often you see a top 10 in a sim race in ACC that doesn't have a Porsche in it. So a bit of variation. Obviously, the Carbon Esports 225 Porsche in the championship is running 7th. This is a track that doesn't necessarily suit the car, which is, again, another rare thing to say. It's probably the only track in ACC that I can say with confidence the car doesn't really like, but it's still fast. It's really corners like Puon where that car struggles, and because of the unique nature of this track and the unique challenge of this track, for once you have, I think, a bit more variety at the top, and that's why, as well, with the changing conditions, not only do you just have something like an Audi dominating, or the Mercedes keeping up with the Audis, which you might get if it was just dry running. You bring in Bentleys. If there was a Lexus in here, there'd be a Lexus running at the top as well. You bring in the Ferraris, which sometimes can manage those changeable conditions quite well as well. So it's such an awesome event and track because it brings in so many manufacturers.
I'm loving that. We've just had that highlighted from in chat. I think that is Gregor Schill, isn't it? Roses are red, violets are blue. Here we go, a Mercedes 1-2. Wow. And on that bombshell, I guess what's finally left to say is a huge, huge thanks to the people that make this all possible. That is, of course, our wonderful, wonderful partners, Thrustmaster and Coach Dave Academy, as well as our brand new sponsor coming on board, Trackworks. A very, very huge thank you to all of them. Luke, what a night we've had of qualifying. How excited are you for the race?
I'm a little bit annoyed it's not tomorrow now, because we have this whole day and a half of anticipation waiting for the event to happen, and it's just should have to wait for it. So I'm excited. I'm on. I think we've got the 4th and 5th hours, because I have to go for my own sprint race that I'm doing, which is between our commentary stints. But I've got a lot of Spa this weekend, and I'm looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. I'm going to be for the second stint of 6 hours after a day of working at Croft, and then a midnight drive back home to Scotland, and we'll be back for the final 3 hours as well. So look, it is going to be an amazing, amazing session. Join us then, ladies and gentlemen, for the race on Saturday. It is going to be a glorious 24 hours of Spa here. This has been the qualifying session with Luke Rogers and myself, David Christie. Thank you very much for joining us. We will see you for the penultimate round of the SimGrid World Cup powered by Thrustmaster. In the meantime, have a wonderful Friday, and we'll see you very, very soon.
So talking more about the load cell pedal then, Hunter, just explain to us what the main benefits would be for somebody that's not used any load cells before.
Well, I'm sure you can attest to it that it just feels like a more natural brake feel that you would feel in like a car or whatever you would drive on track. You just get more data inputs from a load cell to your sim of choice by ACC instead, of course, iRacing, whatever. And that leads to a smoother and more consistent braking feel.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, I'll sort of hold my hands up and say I was quite surprised with the fact that even with a basic load cell, you can sort of feel that the car doesn't lock up as much. It's not so stabby on the brakes.